guys! So I haven't done a setup video of my Hobonichi Cousin since September, and I thought that it was definitely time that I show you what's been going on with it. As you know, this is my work planner, and things have been really busy at work since the new term started, so I've been using this planner a lot and thinking about some changes that I'd like to make, and I wanted to go through them with you. So I have this in one of my vegan leather Hobonichi style covers that I got from the Etsy shop Love by Gabby, which I'll link down below. I have these in a few different colors, so you've probably seen them already, and I absolutely love them. This particular one was an amazing rack from my planner friend in Finland. Thank you, Nanna. And I really, really love it. It's so happy and cheerful. So inside I just have some sticky notes, and I particularly use these for marking important things that I don't want to forget since I don't have highlighters. These ones I keep more in here in case I need to mark something in a book that I'm reading. And then I have a Greenlandic flag and a Sami flag because I've been working on these two languages. And some my library cards and a picture of Panda. This you've already seen, but I think that this is new. These are from the Mambi Value sticker packs. And I just put some motivational quotes on here that seemed really appropriate for work. Start somewhere, because when I'm starting a new writing project, that's the thing that always terrifies me. It always seems impossible until it's done, because I regularly fear that what I have to do will be impossible. Make it happen, you've got this, and change your thoughts and you'll change the world. So I'm trying not to put any stickers on this, but I thought for the front page, which is kind of like a dashboard, that it would be okay to have some stickers there. I still am just using this to mark when I've changed the ink in my fountain pen, so that I can know when I might expect it to run out, so that I don't get stuck, like say at a conference or something, away from my ink supply and have my pen run out, because that is no fun. And I started to use this 2017 calendar to mark events that are going to be coming up after this cousin finishes. I've got the spring version, so it finishes at the end of March. So I've got 2.5 months left in it, and I'm already quite looking forward to starting the new one, because I think when you get to the last couple of months of your planner, events start to appear that you'll need to put in the new planner, and it starts to get a little bit frustrating. I'm already checking dates for July and August, and I've got them on here, but I don't have them anywhere else in the planner, so I'm looking forward to a fresh start with my new cousin, spring cousin. So I put in the events that I know of that are happening after this cousin finishes, just so that I could see them visually, but it's a bit cramped. There's not a lot of room, obviously, because this calendar isn't designed for writing in. So I think I might stop using this. I've got my forward planning in another place, which I'll show you in a minute. Then we come to the first thing, which is up for change. So I haven't done anything with this yet, but I'm thinking of using this in a very different way to how I've been using it. So right now, and this is the way that I've used this spread since I started using a cousin in 2015, I use this vertical half-yearly spread to mark off events that are happening at the top. So these would be out of the ordinary events, so something like a summer school or a conference or anything where there's a block of time where I'm going to be away. But then I also use this vertical spread to indicate the same thing. So I think it's become a little bit redundant having this at the top, which is probably why I've ended up leaving it blank, because you can see here in November I went to Vienna for a workshop that I was co-teaching. So I just marked down the Vienna days there. Then I've marked down some Jewish holidays here because our department was closed. Then when I was away, term started, and then I'm going to Penn State in February, so I've marked that off, and then I've got a conference there. So I've marked all those things on this vertical spread and left the rest of the time blank. Last year I used this in a more detailed way, and I would fill in exactly what I was doing in the days. So if I was teaching, like which classes I had, if there was a one-day event or something, I would mark that off. But this year I haven't done that. I think just because I've got things marked in so many different places in the different layouts in here that it felt redundant, and I couldn't be bothered to do it subconsciously. It wasn't really like a conscious decision, except I thought, well, if I'm at home, I know that I'm at home, and I've got my teaching and other events listed in other places, and so I don't need to put it in here. Then at the bottom, I list the things that I want to be working on for the month, which are not really time specific. So these are, for me, they're research projects. If you're not using this as a work planner, or if you're not an academic or you don't do writing type projects, I don't think it matters. You could still use it in that way if you wanted to. For projects that you're in charge of, that basically won't happen unless you do them, but that you need to do. So these were some things that I needed to keep in mind for December, and then these are the things that I should be working on in January. Sometimes I don't get to all of them in that month, and then I'll roll them forward to the next month, but this is just to keep an eye on my research projects, basically. And this takes us until the end of the year, so because this ends at the end of March, this is it. This is the last spread. Now, what I'm thinking about doing is something completely different with this, because as you've seen, and you'll see when I show you the monthly pages, there's quite a lot of overlap between this and my monthly pages and my weekly pages. And I feel like one of the great strengths of the Hobonichi Cousin is that it has so many different layouts. But I also feel like that means that you might need to tweak it occasionally to get the best use of that particular layout. And when I started using this, I was carrying it forward from my Moleskine, which is what I'd used before. And the Moleskine at the time had a very similar vertical yearly layout to this, and that was how I was using that. So I just started using it for this. That didn't have the spaces at the bottom, so I wasn't recording my research projects. I was just recording where I was going to be so that I could have an overview of my year at a very quick, accessible glance type format. But now I'm thinking, because I've got the monthly pages, which also allow me to have an overview of my schedule, and I've got the daily pages, that I found that I haven't really been consulting this that much. It's often like I forget that it's there, and then I think, oh, I should really check this because this has got my yearly overview. But I feel like it's not as necessary, because if we go to my monthly pages, I list the projects that I should be working on here. So I haven't been as consistent about listing the research projects because I've known that they're in this yearly view, but I list the things that I have to keep in mind that I have to do sometime that month. This is a little bit more specific because it's not necessarily research projects. It could be a specific admin task that has to be done, an email I have to send to students that I don't know when I'm going to do in the month, but that has to be done sometime in that month. So I kind of think that it would make sense just to list my research projects that I should be working on for the month here, because there's loads of space here. I never use this space at the bottom. And because I'm already looking at this anyway, it would help to keep those things in mind. The reason that I'm thinking this is not only because of efficiency, because I don't really mind having this slightly redundant spread, because as long as I do look at it sometimes, then it's not a waste and it's quite efficient, seeing 6 months at a glance. But the thing that is really bugging me is not this part. I think this works fine, and I'm actually thinking of keeping this. But what I really feel like is redundant is this, because I don't use it that often, and I don't think I really need to see 6 months at a glance in terms of where I'm going to be, if I'm going away, if I have a conference. I don't really feel like that's absolutely necessary. What is necessary, and I know I'm jumping around a lot, but this is just because I think that makes the most sense for what I want to show you. I have my daily spreads, which I use for a combination of daily notes and just various work notes that aren't date specific. So I'll show you what I mean. If I have a really busy day where I'm in the department, so in university as opposed to working from home, and I have a lot of different random small tasks to do, it's not enough room to fit into the weekly spreads. So sorry about all this jumping around. This is my weekly spread, and just very quickly, I use the weekly spread for timed appointments and tasks. So I put in all of my teaching, if I have another appointment, any kind of event, and then I also put tasks down here below the time layout. And I put like kind of the main things for the day that I need to remember for that day at the top. So these are kind of like either tasks that come up during the day, or if there's a note that I need to expand on that's related to something in the time section. So for example, this is a class that I'm teaching, and I have to remember to tell my students about something that's happening in the class. We're going to have tour of a theater because I'm putting on a play with my students. Anyway, so I put that note down there because there's not enough room to put it here, but it's something that my students need to know about in the class, and I want to remember to tell them in the class. So I put that sort of thing down here, and this is more like major tasks that I want to get done or the focus for the day. So if I'm at home, so like some days I'm working from home, and then I will use this. I'll tell you, I'll come back to this and tell you a bit more how I use this. It's nothing new, so you might have seen it already. Then I usually have enough space here. If it's a really busy day when I'm in the department and lots of stuff running around, then this is just not enough room and it gets really messy. And so I decided instead I'll use the daily pages for that, because that's actually what they're designed for. So I use the daily pages just as a to-do list for that day, and then I have lots of space and it's great. So you can see last Tuesday and Wednesday, in both cases, there was enough space to warrant using the daily pages. So I always keep the current day free. So you can see at the moment, it's Thursday the 19th of January. So I always make sure that I don't use any of the notes pages up to that I kind of stay a bit behind, so that if I need to use the current day as a daily spread, it's empty. With the leftover pages, the blank pages, like this one and this one, this was yesterday and the day before yesterday. Obviously, I'm not going to need to use these for daily pages. So instead I use them for notes. So for example, this is a note for an article that I'm going to be working on. And these are notes for a book that I was finishing. So these are nothing to do with the dates. I don't necessarily write these on the dates when they happen. They'll be sometime in the same month, probably even in the same week. But depending on how many blank pages I have, I'll just use them as in when I need them. So this is a mix of daily pages and notes, anything to do with work. And I find that works really well. It's not confusing because I always have the current day blank. So if I need to use it for daily notes, I can. And then for the rest of the time, it doesn't matter what the date is, because I don't need to know exactly what day I was making these notes on. Sometimes I might use the same notes page for more than one day. In the case of this, I was using this for notes for my book that I was finishing. And so I just used it probably over the course of 3 or 4 days, because there was enough space for that and it was fine. So the way that I know how to find things is this spread that you get at the beginning of each month where it says, remember this. I use that as a monthly index. And so I just write down what is on each page. So here you can say it's daily notes. All of these pages were daily notes. And then wherever it's something that's not daily notes, I'll note down what it was, and then I can go back and find it. And I'll put a star next to it if it's something that I think I'll need to go back and reference. So often, like when the month gets full, like this, you can see, let's see, here it is. Trying to find one without names. There's like lots of names on everything. Okay, so for this one, you can see that this is full up until the end of the month. This was October. So it can get quite bewildering trying to find things, like going through this whole list to find, I know that I wrote down that list of names on some page, but I don't know where it is. So I'll go through here to find it. And so I'll put a star next to the ones that I think I'm going to need to go back to, just to make it easier. So the ones without stars are just things that I know I'm not going to need to refer to again. And I can kind of skip over them when I'm looking through the list. Then if it's something that I have finished that I was going to need to refer back to, but now later have finished, I'll put a tick next to it. And that means I can ignore that as well. So later when I'm going through looking for whatever it is, all I need to do is look at the ones which have a star but no tick. So you can see in October there are only 3 days that still have things that I'm going to need to refer back to. So this is how I've been using this system, so that I can navigate between the daily notes and the notes for specific projects. That was fine for the first few months when I only had, like, say April, May, June in here. It wasn't that much of a problem to look through these indices every month. But now that I'm coming to the end of the planner, I've got like 10 months worth of indices in here, and it's starting to get confusing, because even if with the star system and the tick system, I can still, if I don't remember it, like I could have written something down, let's say between, I don't know, May and December, because some of these projects are ongoing things that I might have started at some point much earlier in the year and need to refer back to. But if I haven't needed to look at them for a few months and now the time has come to look at them again, I just have to look through 10 pages worth of indices, and even with the star system, it can take quite a while to find them. So this was actually not a digression. It did have a point. We're going back to the yearly spread now. So the point with this yearly spread is that, and this is not my idea, a lot of people use it like this already. I just never did. It never occurred to me to use it like this. But now I'm actually thinking that it would be much more efficient to use this as an overall master index for my daily pages. So that if there's something particularly important that I've had to look up once already, I can just put it in here and say December 13th, master cast list for the play, for example. And then because I'll only be using this for the equivalent of the things that are starred on the daily pages, so I would be using them for all of these things that I know I'm going to have to refer back to, it shouldn't get too cluttered. So just by opening to one spread, I could see exactly what I need in which month, and it would be valid for the whole year. So I would only have 2 pages to look through. I think that that would be a much more useful way to use this, because I haven't really been utilizing this. I feel like it's kind of a waste of the space. And since I've been having so much frustration looking through these monthly index pages, I think that that would be a really, really helpful addition to the system. So I would still use the monthly index pages. And say for the first couple of months of the year, probably I wouldn't put anything in here because I don't know what is going to be important at that point. But when things start to get unwieldy, as soon as I have to look through and it's a pain trying to find something, I'll just put it in here. So I would try to keep this as minimalist as possible, as in I wouldn't put every single day in here, because then it would get frustrating trying to look through. So I wouldn't note down if it was just a page where I had daily notes or some notes that I'm not going to need to refer back to. I would only put things in here after the fact when it starts to get frustrating and I know that I need it again, and then I'm going to keep needing to refer back to it, because there's some things in here that I use for reference. Like, for example, I think it's near, let's see, the beginning of May, I have this list of Hebrew abbreviations for different books of the Hebrew Bible from the Chicago Manual style, which I use a lot in my writing for referring to biblical references. And so some of them are not abbreviated, some of them are abbreviated, and I can never remember which ones are and which ones aren't and what the abbreviations are. So I've used this since I wrote it down at the beginning of May, and it would be really useful to have it in here so that I could just go back every time I need it and see, oh, it's on the 2nd of May. You would think that I would remember after checking it so many times, but because I don't check it every day, I don't remember. I know that it's sometime at the beginning of May. So anything like that, where I think it would be useful to be able to have a quick reference to it, I think I'm going to put in here. And I think that that would really revolutionize the use of this space. Then at the bottom, I still am planning to keep using it in the way that I have been doing, because that is quite nice. It's not absolutely necessary, because like I was saying, I could put them on the month on 2 pages, but I think it's quite nice to have a 6-monthly overview of the projects that I need to be focusing on, and I might as well use it. If I find that I'm never referring to it, then I'll just stop. But because this space would be blank anyway, I might as well keep using it for that. Likewise, I could still keep the events at the top here. So this would still be a snapshot of my year. I could put in any summer courses, conferences, etc. up here. I would just be taking them out of here, which would be freeing up the space to use it in this amazing new way, which I think would be really, really revolutionary in terms of my cousin use. So I don't feel like I'd be losing anything, and I would be gaining a lot. So that is my plan at the moment. I have to wait until the new cousin kicks in, because I've filled all of this up anyway, and being OCD about this sort of thing, it would bug me to have some index references in here mixed in with all of the other stuff. So I'll have to wait for that, but that's what I want to use it for. Now I'm also thinking of changing the way I use the monthly spreads. So up until now, I've used the monthly spreads to give me an overview of my appointments. So I've written in all of my teaching times, whenever I have an appointment, if I have anything else that's time specific where I have to be, if I'm thinking of seeing somebody on a particular day, going away, And the reason for that is because I wanted to be able to use this for a quick reference guide if I need to make a new appointment. So like say a student wants to see me, I just would go to the monthly spread and see I'm free on this day at this time. Or if I need to make a dentist appointment or anything else, this is a quicker way than going to the weekly spreads and like leafing through them. And then here I keep, like I mentioned, all of the things that I have to do sometime during the month, but that I don't know exactly when, just so that I don't lose track of them. And it's quite easy to migrate them from month to month if I don't get them done, and also to slot these into a particular week. So what I will normally do with this is I'll write this down, like I want to do X sometime in January. So because I refer to the monthly spread, I have this in mind. Then I think, okay, really I should try to get that done sometime next week. And then I'll put it onto the weekly spread here. This space on the left that it's just notes, it's not assigned to a particular day. I use this to write down all of the things that I want to get done sometime during that week, but I'm not sure when yet. So it's kind of like a funneling system where it goes from, quite general, sometime during the month, to a bit more specific, sometime during the week. And then from there, I'll try to slot it into a particular day. So I'm really happy with that. I think that works well, and that's fine, and there's lots of room. But what I noticed is, again, just like with this yearly spread, is that I started to feel like I haven't actually been using this a lot because I'm always in my weekly spread. And so what I've noticed over the past few months is that kind of instinctively, whenever anyone asks me, like, can we meet on this day at this time, I'll always just flip to the weekly spread and see if that's free. And I actually started thinking, I really should be using that monthly spread because I've written down all of my appointments there. And I think that the reason that I don't use this is, one, because I'm so used to being in the weekly spread all the time that I just automatically look there. And it's not actually that much of a pain to flip through the weeks. And the other reason is that here I've got things listed by time, but it's not in order because I'll write things down as they come up. So for example, I have dentist 2:45, and then I had a Viva at 12 p.m., which is earlier, and then meeting a student even earlier, because that's the order that things were arranged in. And because obviously there are no times on here, I found it difficult to estimate because I don't know exactly when things are going to come up, like to sort of try to put them in order by time. I think that's too complicated for a little space like this. So, I mean, I guess theoretically I could sort of like leave the first two lines for morning stuff and the second two lines for early afternoon and the next two for late afternoon and then after that for evening, but I've just never done it like that. So I think visually it's more confusing because here I have everything laid out chronologically, so I know exactly when things are happening and I can picture in my day how much time am I going to have. Whereas here it's actually harder because it's all jumbled up. And so and then the other issue with it is that I have to write things twice. So if I have an appointment, I write it in here, and then I'm like, oh, I actually have to write it in here as well. And then I start worrying, what if I forget to write it in the monthly spread as well? Because I'll always immediately go to the weekly spread, write it there. And then the monthly spread is like, oh, I have to write that down as well. And if I'm in a hurry, like say I'm in the middle of a class or something and I've booked a replacement lesson, I'll write it in here. And then I have to remember to put it in here. And if I don't remember right then, I might forget about it and then not have it in here. And then if I did use this to book an appointment, I wouldn't have it in here. And I might end up double booking myself, which is every planner's nightmare. So I started getting nervous about using this because I couldn't guarantee that I'd written everything twice. And I also feel like for efficiency, this is my work planner and I use it a lot, but I use it in a purely functional way. I don't decorate it, as you can see. I just want to get things done. And usually, like with work, I'm always in such a hurry and so like kind of frenzied and overextended that having an extra task to do is not helping. So I decided that I didn't want to use it like that anymore. And what I think I want to do, and again, I'm not really going to be able to do this until the new planner starts because I've already had this, I've already set this up until the end of the year for the next few months. Hi, Tails. Tails has just come in from his walk. Hello. He's just outside of frame. So what I'd like to be able to do with this instead is, instead of writing all of my appointments, I just want to use this for a general overview of my month more like the vertical view, which I'm now not going to be using like this. I think that it would be quite convenient to have it set out like that here. So for example, if I'm going to be away, let me see if I've got any names on here. Okay, I think that's safe. So for example, I'm going to Penn State, like I mentioned, so I could put that in here so that if I'm planning, say, I want to know how much time or how many days I'll have free to work on revisions to an article. I can say I'm away here. And then here, instead of writing in all of my appointments, I'll just write teaching or like in university. So I don't actually have to copy appointments twice, but I'll have a general overview of where I'm going to be that day, so that basically so that I know if it's a day that I have free for research or not. And so if I'm trying to think, because this is usually the issue with my job, is there's teaching, there's admin, there are other like external appointments that come up, like external examining and conferences. And then the days that are left over are the days that I have for research, which I really have to get done, but isn't kind of budgeted for in the same way as the other things. So then I can see, oh, the Fridays, usually I'm at home on Fridays. So I'll know like, okay, I can work on it. I have 4 Fridays this month that I can work on X, or I have 4 Sundays or something, but I don't have this Sunday because I'm going to be coming home. So I'm thinking of using it like that. So it would basically give me the same overall view, because I do actually use this to try to map out how much time I'll have for a given research project. And I feel like in order to do that, it's not necessary to have all the specific appointments here, because I've got the weekly spread for that. And that means I would just have to write things down once, which guarantees that I won't miss anything. And I haven't actually missed anything as a result of this system yet, but I just feel like it's not completely watertight, and also it's inefficient, and I would like it to just be easy and foolproof. So I think that this will improve it, just having to write things down in one place. And then I'll be able to have an overview of, am I away, am I at home, and am I in university? And I'll still keep this for the tasks that I have to do sometime in the month. And maybe I'll put the research projects down here, although I think as it is, I'm planning to keep them in the vertical yearly overview, like I was saying. So that's what I'm thinking of doing with this. And the weekly spread, I'm really happy with the way the weekly spreads are going. Like I said, I've got things that I haven't decided where to slot them in yet here. Then I have all of my timed appointments here. And I also use this, as you can see here, I had to do some marking of coursework. So this was a time when I was at home, but I really like to use the hourly slots in the same way as I would if I had appointments, just to give myself an estimate of how long I think something will take me. So here I said, I gave myself half an hour to mark each piece of coursework, and I said, oh, I'll do this one between 6 and half 6, this between half 6 and 7, etc. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and things take me much longer than I expected, and occasionally, much more rarely, they're quicker than I expected. But I still really like this, for one, because it means I get to use this space so that if I'm at home, I don't just have a blank day, because I've been using it to map out what I'm going to be doing during that day. And also I feel like it helps to keep me on target, because I think often when you're working at home on something that can be very amorphous feeling like a writing project, it can be very easy not to progress very far, because you're like, well, I'm just going to be working on this all day. But if I break it down into smaller pieces and say, I'm going to be doing the introduction for an hour, and then I'm going to move on to the first point, and then I'm going to find examples, then it makes it seem much less daunting. And also it gives me an idea of how long I should expect to be working on it. So I really like using the hourly layouts for that. And for that reason, this would be essential even if I didn't have appointments. You know, even during the summer when I'm working from home most of the time, I still get a lot of use out of this hourly layout, even if I don't have any appointments. So I use that like that. So that's kind of how my day is going to look in terms of work. Sometimes if I have a non-work task that is going to have to be included here, I'll put it in as well, just because it shows me what the day will look like, and you know how much time I'll have to miss out if I have, like, for example, the dentist appointment, which is now a classic example, I feel like, because I've mentioned it in another video as well. So I'm constantly talking about this dentist appointment, which has now happened. So that's how I use the daily spreads. Then the space at the top and the space at the bottom, I feel like there's a little bit of inconsistency there, because my original idea was to put at the top the main focus of the day. So if it's a day where I'm at home, I would put the research project that I want to be looking at, and that would be another way of mapping out how many days I have for it. But I feel like it's actually more efficient to use the monthly spreads for that, because like I said, that gives me an overview and I can see, okay, I have 14 days for X, and I have already been using it like that quite a bit. So instead, I started experimenting with using this for things to do at home and this for things to do while I'm out in the university, because that's an easy way of distinguishing between them. Because sometimes I would, if I try to put my top focus for the day, like say the top 3 here, then I would run out of space down here and have to go over into the daily pages, which does sometimes happen anyway. But it's not that I'm trying to save the daily pages and not use them, but I do like to just use the weekly spread if possible, just because then I've got more space for notes. Not that it's ever been a problem. I'm totally fine. I never feel like I'm running out of space for notes. So I think that this is amazing for that. That's one of the reasons why I love the Cousin for this purpose, because I never feel like I'm running out of room. But still, I think it would make more sense. I've kind of been using it like that, trying to put to-dos that have to be done at home up here and things that have to be done in the university down here. But I haven't been really consistent with that, because I think I'm still used to the idea of thinking of this as the main things for the day. Not really top 3, because I don't know. I know the top 3 is a really popular system, but for some reason I've never been able to get it to work for me. Not that there's anything at all wrong with it. I don't mean to knock it at all. I just somehow I always feel like I can't like get the things that I want to do into fit into 3, because there might be a really big thing that I have to do that will take most of the day, but then a whole bunch of smaller things that I also really want to get done during the day. So basically, you can see yesterday I had to buy some chocolate for someone, and then I had to write a reference. And so I put those up here because those were 2 things that I really wanted to remember to make sure that they didn't get lost. And I just put them up here because this was empty. And then I put some more to-dos down here as they occurred to me throughout the day. So this was actually inconsistent, because the reference had to be done at home. Chocolate obviously had to be bought outside the home. Then these things are a mix of things that I had to do at home and things that I had to do in university. So that didn't work very well at all. And the same with these things. A lot of these things were things that were done at university, but some of them were things that were done at home. And so sometimes I'm also using it kind of like, these are things that I do earlier in the day, and then these are the things that I do later in the day. So I haven't completely fine-tuned this yet. It's okay. There are no problems with it. And I think maybe you don't have to be too strict about exactly how you're using something to make sure that it's absolutely perfect. But I would still like this to be completely systematic. Then, like, for example, this is today. I put this 1, 2, 3 recycling because this recycling company came to collect our old dryer. And I wanted to make sure that I remembered that somebody has to be home then. So I put that in ages ago. Then I put in some things that I want to do on the train into work. And then I've got down here these notes for things that I want to tell my students during class. And then the rest of this is the time schedule. So it's okay, it works. This is effectively more of a AM, PM kind of system, but it's actually AM and then notes. So another way that I could do it would be to put all of the tasks up here at the top. And it's okay to run into the AM hours because I get up quite late. So that's like one of my terrible lifelong battles, is getting up early. But realistically, I'm never going to be doing anything at 7 or 8. So it's okay if the to-dos kind of spill over into the morning. And then put any kind of notes that I have to remember that are to do with these time sections down here. That would be another way of doing it. So I'm still experimenting with that. I'm not exactly sure how I will end up using that, but I am using them, and it's fine. I have enough room. And then if it gets to be a really crazy day, like I said, then I just go over onto the daily notes. So the only other things that I have at the end here, because like I mentioned, I'm coming up to the end, I started to put forward planning in here. And so this was for 2017, but obviously because this goes until the end of March, anything after March, I was putting in here. And this bugged me again because it's random, it's not in order. So I could have divided it and said May, June, July, August. But I didn't. I was just writing things down as they came up. And so it's like some things for May, some things for July, and it's very messy. So I didn't like that. So what I did instead was put them in the monthly view, because in the monthly view, they give you until May. So you can see here, I've got the May calendar here, which is 2 months after the planner ends. So for April and May, I'm just using this for forward planning. Not as much forward planning as I need, but then I put the June events down here and the July events down here. And at the moment, I don't have anything for August. I actually do have one thing for August, the second week of August, but I'm not really worrying about that. I should really put that in here. But I've divided this by month so that I've got enough room that I can write down any more June events, any more July events, and then anything else that happens later in the year I can write down. And then when my new cousin comes in, I'll just look at this page, transfer everything over. I'll probably also have to look at the April page, because the April page is the same. So effectively I'm going to be using the April and May pages to put in anything that is due to happen. This will just be for April, and then, you know, obviously this is May, and then anything later in the year. And so I think that this is kind of going to replace this. So I've been trying to experiment with the best way to do the forward planning, and I really like having things divided by month, and I also like having all the forward planning stuff in the same place. And so I think because they give you this May month, then I'll just put it all in here, and there won't be so much that it overruns this page, and then I can just transfer it over when the time comes. So other than that, I'm using the pages in the back for, I used this for my timetable when my teaching year started. I don't really consult it now because I know my timetable and I write it in the weekly pages, but it was quite nice at the beginning of the year to have the timetable and use it for that. And then I'm writing coursework marks in here in the favorites page, and this one, the anniversaries, because they've got enough slots to cover all of my students. And so I just put in the different components of the course and keep them in here until the end of the year. And this is another reason why I like the Spring Cousin, because it finishes at the end of March, which is when our teaching year ends. So we still have revision and exams that go into the end of May, but essentially the teaching year is over, and so I can take all of the coursework marks and give them to my departmental administrators, and that's kind of it, and I won't need them again when I transfer into the new cousin. So that's it. That is my current cousin setup, and also my thoughts for changes. So when I get my new cousin, I'll do a setup video of that and show you how I've been using it. I hope that you enjoyed this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.